There is no shelter here. Sir, I just need to meet the manager for only 2 minutes. Will the manager meet you? Have you looked in a mirror first? Just 2 minutes. After that I'll leave. No, you leave right now. Very important guests are coming today. Because of you, we will lose our jobs. Move aside, move aside. What's the matter, sir? This man is insisting on going inside. Don't you understand? This is a 5-star hotel. Not everyone is allowed inside here. Not everyone is allowed inside, is that so? I haven't come for any trouble. I just need to have an important word with you. People like you make up some excuse or the other every day to try to sneak inside. Go from here. Looks like he's come asking for a job. Just look at his clothes first. But that man just stood there calmly. There was neither anger nor a sense of insult in his eyes, as if he was used to such things. Just then, from inside the hotel, "Son, if you have some work, come back later. The atmosphere isn't right today." "Uncle, I'll wait. Everyone please be ready at your places." But what happened next, no one had imagined at all. An esteemed elderly gentleman stepped out of the car. Several senior officials were with him as well. But the very next moment, such a scene unfolded that everyone's breath caught in their throats. The country's biggest industrialist stopped in front of that ordinary man. Just who was this ordinary-looking person before whom even such a great industrialist bowed down in respect? But the real secret was yet to come out. It was morning. The city hadn't fully woken up yet, but there was more activity in the Royal Crown Hotel than there had been even at night. This was the very hotel where big names from the country and abroad considered it a matter of pride to stay. Every corner of the hotel was gleaming. The staff were busy with their respective duties because word had come that an industrialist was arriving today, whose name alone made even the biggest of people stand up in respect. The hotel's general manager, Vikram Malhotra, kept checking his watch again and again. He was giving strict instructions to every staff member. Make sure there isn't a single mistake today. Everything must look absolutely perfect. From the reception to the restaurant, every corner was being cleaned. Guards at the main gate were keeping a strict watch on everyone coming and going. Meanwhile, at the hotel's main entrance, an ordinary man of about 35 years arrived. He was wearing washed but old clothes. He had worn-out sandals on his feet. On his shoulder was a small bag, and there was a deep calm on his face. He walked toward the gate without any hesitation. The guard looked him up and down and blocked his way. "Where are you going?" "There is no shelter here." That man said politely, "I just need to meet the manager, sir, for 2 minutes." The guard burst out laughing. "The manager will meet you. Have you looked in a mirror first?" Some staff standing nearby also started smiling. That man then said again in a calm tone, "Just 2 minutes, after that I'll leave." The guard said firmly, "Very important guests are coming today. Because of you, we will lose our jobs. Move aside." Just then manager Vikram also arrived there. "What's the matter?" The guard said, "Sir, this man is insisting on going inside." The manager looked at him and said with a scornful smile, "Don't you understand, this is a 5-star hotel. Not everyone is allowed inside here." That man said with respect, "I haven't come for any trouble. I just need to have an important word with you." The manager, without listening to him, said, "People like you try to sneak inside every day with some excuse or another. Go from here." The man stayed silent for a few moments. He didn't argue with anyone. Some of the people standing nearby were laughing at his simplicity. One staff member said, "Looks like he's come asking for a job." Another said, "Just look at his clothes first." Everyone's laughter echoed around. But that person just stood there calmly. There was neither anger nor a sense of insult in his eyes, as if he was used to such things. Just then, an elderly cleaning staff member came out from inside the hotel. He looked at that man carefully and said, "Son, if you have some work, come back later. The atmosphere isn't right today. The man smiled and said, Uncle, I'll wait. The elderly man was surprised to see his humility. At that very moment, some police vehicles pulled up outside the hotel. Security was tightened further. The manager told all the staff, everyone stand at your places. The guests could arrive any moment. Suddenly the whole atmosphere turned more serious. That ordinary man was still standing quietly to one side of the gate. Someone tried to shoo him away, but he only said, I won't get in the way. A few minutes later, a long convoy appeared in the distance. One after another, black luxury cars began pulling up in front of the hotel. Security officers immediately sprang into action. All the staff folded their hands to welcome them. Everyone's eyes were on that special car in front, in which the country's biggest industrialist was said to be arriving. The car door slowly opened. The whole atmosphere fell completely silent. Everyone expected the industrialist to walk straight onto the red carpet. But what happened next, no one had imagined at all. An esteemed elderly gentleman stepped out of the car. With him were several senior officials too. He cast a glance over the whole hotel. Then his gaze fell on that same ordinary man standing near the gate, and stayed there. Suddenly a smile appeared on his face. Without wasting a single moment, he began walking briskly toward that very man. The manager thought he was probably going to have him removed. The guards rushed forward, but the very next moment such a scene unfolded that everyone's breath caught in their throats. The country's biggest industrialist stopped in front of that ordinary man. He folded both his hands, bowed his head in respect, and touched his feet with reverence. The entire hotel was left stunned. The welcome bouquet fell from the manager's hands. The guards' eyes went wide with shock. The staff looked at each other, unable to understand just who this ordinary-looking person was, before whom even such a great industrialist bowed down in respect. But the real secret was yet to come out. The moment the industrialist touched the feet of that ordinary man, such a hush fell over the entire hotel, as if time had stopped for a moment. None of the staff had the courage to say anything. General Manager Vikram Malhotra, who just minutes earlier had insulted that very man, now couldn't even bring himself to look at his face. The industrialist smiled and said, Guruji, why did you go to the trouble of coming without telling me? If you had just sent word, I would have come to you myself. On hearing this, everyone present turned pale. That ordinary man replied with a faint smile, Raghav, I always taught you that respect should be given not for one's position but for one's humanity. That's why I came without telling you. It was as if bells rang in the manager's ears. He could not believe that the man he had been getting thrown out of the hotel just moments ago was being addressed as Guruji by the country's biggest industrialist. Raghav turned to his officials and said, Please meet him, all of you. The biggest reason I stand where I am today is because of him. All the officials stepped forward at once and greeted the man respectfully. The hotel staff's eyes were now lowered in shame. A little while later, Raghav said to the manager, Can we go inside now? The manager said in a trembling voice, Yes sir, please come in. That man said, I will only go inside once every single member of staff here is treated the way an honored guest would be treated. Silence fell over the hall once again. Raghav, in a serious tone, turned toward Vikram Malhotra and said, You heard Guruji. Every single person standing here today, the guards, the cleaners, the boys who parked the cars, they will all be served exactly as we are about to be served. Not a single person less. Vikram's throat had gone dry. He nodded quickly, not trusting his own voice, and gestured to his staff to open the main hall. As everyone began walking toward the entrance, the guard who had blocked the man earlier stood frozen near the gate, his cap in his hands, his eyes fixed on the marble floor. He did not know whether to run, to apologize, or to simply disappear. It was the old cleaning staff member, the one who had gently called the stranger, son, who nudged him forward. Say something, the old man whispered. Before it becomes too late to say anything at all. The guard stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. Sir. I am sorry. I did not know who you were. Guruji turned to him, and there was no anger in his face at all, only the same quiet calm he had carried since morning. You don't need to apologize for not knowing who I am, he said. You need to think about why it mattered to you at all. If I really had been a man with nowhere to sleep, would that have made it right to speak to me the way you did? The guard had no answer. He simply lowered his head. Guruji placed a hand on his shoulder. It's all right. Most people are taught to see clothes before they see character. It is not entirely your fault. But today, at least, you have learned to see the difference. That is enough. Inside, the grand hall of the Royal Crown Hotel had never seen a morning quite like this one. Round tables were arranged in neat rows, gleaming with silverware and fresh flowers, all prepared for the arrival of the country's most powerful businessman and his entourage. But now, on Guruji's insistence, extra chairs were being brought in, for the guards from the gate, for the boys who carried luggage, for the women who mopped the corridors before dawn, and for the old man who had spoken kindly to a stranger when no one else had. Vikram Malhotra stood at the edge of the hall, watching his own staff being seated at tables meant for dignitaries, and for the first time in years, he felt something other than the pressure of his position. He felt shame, real and simple, the kind that does not need anyone else to point it out. As breakfast was served, Raghav rose from his seat, and though the room was full of important people, all eyes turned to him, waiting. Many of you have heard my name in newspapers, he began. You have heard about the company I built, the factories, the exports, the numbers. But almost none of you have heard about the man sitting there, in those same old clothes he arrived in, who is the actual reason any of it exists. He looked toward Guruji, who sat quietly, uncomfortable with the attention, as though he would rather have slipped out unnoticed. 22 years ago, Raghav continued, I was a boy who slept on the floor of a small tea stall on the outskirts of this very city. My father had passed, my mother worked as a domestic help in 3 different houses, and I collected empty bottles and scrap metal to sell for a few rupees. I did not go to school. I did not know how to write my own name properly. The room had gone completely still. Even the clinking of cutlery had stopped. One evening, a schoolteacher who had just retired came to that tea stall for a cup of tea. He saw me trying to read the torn pages of an old newspaper that someone had used to wrap vegetables. He sat down next to me, not across from me, next to me, and he asked me what the words said. When I told him I didn't know, he didn't laugh, and he didn't pity me either. He simply said, would you like to know? Raghav's voice caught for a moment before he continued. That man was Guruji. He had no obligation to me. He was not paid to teach me. He came to that same tea stall every single evening for almost 3 years, sat on the same broken bench, and taught me to read, to write, to add and subtract, and later, when I grew a little older, he taught me something far more important than any of that. He paused and looked around the hall, at the officials in their suits, at the guards still in their uniforms, at the cleaning staff who had never in their lives sat at a table like this one. He taught me that a man's worth is not decided by his clothes, his address, or the car he arrives in. He taught me that the moment you start treating another human being as less important than yourself because of what they own or what they wear, you have already failed as a human being, no matter how much money you go on to make. Vikram Malhotra, standing near the back of the hall, felt his legs grow weak. He thought of every word he had said to Guruji at the gate less than an hour ago. Raghav went on. When I finally got my first small job in a workshop, Guruji did not ask me for a single rupee in return for everything he had given me. When I built my first factory, I went looking for him to repay him, and do you know what he told me? He said, you don't owe me money, Raghav. You owe every person who will ever work for you the same patience I gave you. I have tried, every single day since, to live by those words. I do not always succeed. But I try. He turned toward Guruji one last time. And today, without any warning, he traveled here by bus, on his own, in the same clothes he has always worn, because he wanted to remind me of something. I don't yet know what it is. But I suspect it has something to do with what happened at your gate this morning. All eyes turned to Guruji, who finally stood, a little reluctantly, as though he had never wanted to be the center of anyone's story. I did not come to embarrass anyone, he said gently. I came because I heard that Raghav was opening a new wing of this hotel for underprivileged students to stay in during their examinations, free of cost, and I wanted to see it with my own eyes before I grew too old to travel. I was not trying to test anyone. But sometimes, the world tests itself, without anyone intending it. He looked toward the guard and the manager, and his voice remained soft. What happened at the gate this morning happens in 100 places, 1,000 times a day, and most of the time, no one is there to see it, and no one is there to correct it. Today, by chance, it was seen. That is all. He turned back to the room. I don't blame any one person here. I blame a way of seeing things that we are all taught from childhood, that a wrinkled shirt means a wasted life, that a pair of broken sandals means a broken mind. It is not true. It was never true. The boy who slept at that tea stall 22 years ago is standing in front of you now, and he built one of the largest companies in this country. Imagine how many other boys and girls, sitting outside gates just like the one at this hotel, are being turned away right now, at this very moment, simply because someone looked at their clothes instead of their eyes. For a long moment, no one in the hall spoke. It was Vikram Malhotra who finally broke the silence. He walked forward, past the tables of officials and staff, until he stood directly in front of Guruji, and, in front of everyone he managed, he folded his hands. I am ashamed of what I said to you this morning, he said, his voice shaking. I have worked in this industry for 15 years, training my staff to smile at anyone who arrives in an expensive car and to turn away anyone who doesn't look like they belong. I did not think of it as cruelty. I thought of it as protecting the hotel's standards. Today I understand that I was protecting nothing but my own prejudice. Guruji did not touch his feet, as Raghav had done, nor did he ask him to. He simply extended a hand and helped him stand up straight. The fact that you can say this out loud, in front of everyone who works for you, tells me you are not a lost cause, Mr. Malhotra. Most people, when caught, defend themselves. You did not. That already makes you better than you think you are this morning. Later that day, before Guruji left, quietly and on his own, refusing the car that Raghav offered him, refusing even to stay one more night in the very hotel that now wanted to name a wing after him, he asked for only one thing. He asked that the guard who had stopped him at the gate, and the elderly cleaning staff member who had shown him the only kindness that morning, both be given the opportunity to study further if they wished to, at the company's expense, the same way he himself had once been given a chance at a broken tea stall bench with nothing but patience and a torn newspaper. Raghav agreed without a second's hesitation. As Guruji walked out through the same gate he had been blocked from that morning, the guard rushed forward one last time, not to stop him this time, but to open the gate wide, standing at attention as though a president were passing through. Guruji, the guard said quietly, will you come again? The old man smiled, the same calm smile he had worn all morning, through every insult and every closed door. I come wherever there is something worth learning, he said. Sometimes that is inside a boardroom. Sometimes it is at a gate like this one. The lesson does not care where it happens. Only the person receiving it decides whether they were paying attention. And with that, he walked toward the bus stop at the end of the road, in the same worn-out sandals, carrying the same small bag, disappearing into the ordinary crowd of the city, an ordinary man, by every outward appearance, who had, in the space of a single morning, without raising his voice even once, taught an entire five-star hotel the one lesson no amount of money could ever buy. Weeks later, a small brass plaque was fixed beside the main entrance of the Royal Crown Hotel, at the exact spot where the guard had once stopped a stranger from entering. It read simply, "Judge no one by the door they knock on." You may be standing before your own teacher, and not know it yet. Guests who read it rarely knew the story behind it. But every member of staff who had been there that morning, the guard, the old cleaner, and Vikram Malhotra most of all, never walked past those words without remembering the ordinary man in the old clothes who had waited so patiently at their gate.